Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials. Today, I'm going to talk to you about teaching. This video, vlog post 23-24, is on Teaching 101, the basic elements of teaching. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not a teacher, I don't need this. Well, I've got news for you. Everybody watching this, if you're an adult or even an older youth, is a teacher in one form or another. And if you don't know how to teach, then you're not going to be as effective in communicating and telling people things as you otherwise would be. Now, the basic element of teaching, what you need to know in order to be an effective teacher, in order to be able to convey information to anybody in any sort of effective way, is how do people learn? If you don't understand how people learn, then you won't be as effective as a teacher, as a communicator, as you could be. And that's what I'm going to tell you about in this video today. Now, this video is going to be the first video in an entire new playlist on how to teach. If you're a homeschooler, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher of any kind, you need to watch this entire series. And I don't have the playlist up yet because this is the first video in it, but I will put a link at the end of this video to that playlist, and it will be down in the description section below. And if you're watching this later than May of 2023, there will be this and probably more videos the later we go. There are going to be at least 10 videos in this particular playlist. And if you want to be an effective teacher, I think you need to watch all of them. Okay, let's get on to how do people learn. People learn in three major areas of learning. Now, this was initially developed by an education professor named Benjamin Bloom and a team of educational psychologists many decades ago. And they determined that people learn in three major areas. They learn in the cognitive area. Now, cognitive is basically the brain learning. When somebody tells you something like math is a cognitive activity, that's cognitive learning. But people also learn in the area of their emotions, their feelings, and principally their attitudes. This is called the affective domain. You've got the cognitive domain, you've got the affective domain. I say affective, and it's not the correct pronunciation, but it distinguishes for me that affective is not effective. So the affective domain, and you have the psychomotor domain of learning. Now, the psychomotor domain is eye-hand coordination, it is habit patterns, it is motions. For example, learning to ride a bicycle. You've heard that once you learn to ride a bicycle, you can stop for 10, 20 years and you come back to it and you're able to ride the bicycle. You have trained your muscles on the reactions necessary to ride a bicycle. This is psychomotor learning. Today, we're going to focus on the principal domain of learning, which is cognitive, which is what people think of when they think of going to school and learning things. They're talking about learning in the cognitive domain. Now, Benjamin Bloom and his team of educational psychologists came up with a taxonomy of levels of development within the cognitive domain. And I understand this is a lot of big words, and I'm just going to do the overview here. You don't need to memorize all this stuff, but it's something you eventually will need to know if you're going to be a good teacher. They came up with a bunch of levels of learning within the cognitive domain, and they wrote this out into a taxonomy. Now, a taxonomy is a series of levels of development, and in the cognitive domain and the other domains of learning, what it means is you have to get the lowest level in the taxonomy before you can move on to the next level of learning, and you have to get the second level before you can move on to the third level, and so on. Now, Benjamin Bloom and his team of psychologists, educational psychologists, they came up with 6 levels in the cognitive taxonomy. And these were the knowledge level, which is the basic level. You have to have knowledge before you can move on to the next level, which is comprehension. The next level after that is application. Then you have analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. You don't have to understand all of these right now. I'm just giving you the foundation. Once you have the development in each level, you can then move on to the next level. Later on, additional educators evolved this taxonomy. They eliminated synthesis out of the taxonomy, and on top of evaluation, they added creativity. And this is not something we're going to get into. I'm just giving you the overview. If you want to learn more information, there are a few links in the description section down below. You can follow those, or you can just go look them up on the internet. But for now, it's enough for you to know that there are different levels of learning in cognitive development. Okay? Let's talk about the levels that are most applicable for teachers. Teachers are in the profession or the activity of conveying information to another person so that other person then learns that information. We're going to get into a lot of all of the other aspects of teaching, but right now we're going to focus on how people learn, and how people learn especially in cognitive development in a classroom, in a one-on-one situation, in any kind of teaching situation, is to get through the first 3 levels of the cognitive development taxonomy. First, there's the knowledge level, then there's the comprehension level, and then there's the application level. In any school situation, very rarely will you go beyond the application level, and in most cases, you only go to the comprehension level. Let's go into what those levels are, and I will give you examples of what each one of them means and how it will apply to you understanding, and that's our objective today, is for you to understand how people learn, okay? The knowledge level, it simply means memorization. It means being able to identify something. It doesn't mean you can understand it. And as an example, when I was teaching at the Academic Instructor School for the Air Force, I would tell the classroom of students that I had each time, I'm going to teach you some Japanese language. How many of you in here know Japanese? And of course, almost every single time, there were no hands raised. Nobody knows Japanese. If you know Japanese, wonderful. You will probably be able to correct what I'm saying and tell me, oh, you're wrong, you need to do it this other way. But for this example, I want you to memorize this phrase, okay? Here's the phrase, say it. Ohayo gozaimasu. Say that phrase right now. Ohayo gozaimasu. Say it out loud. I mean it right now. Ohayo gozaimasu. Can you say that? Say it. There you go. That's it. Okay. What you just did was you memorized a phrase in Japanese. You have attained the knowledge level. And you're scratching your head and thinking, yeah, but what good does it do me? I don't know what it means. I can say it. Sure, I can say, Ohayo gozaimasu. And it doesn't mean anything to me. You don't understand it. Well, that's because you're only at the knowledge level. If I said, here are a number of phrases, identify the one that is in Japanese, and one of them said, Ohayo gozaimasu, you would say, I know that one, it's Japanese. You have reached the knowledge level on that particular phrase in this language, okay? Now, let's talk about the next level, comprehension. Comprehension means understanding. There are different levels within the comprehension level, and those are translation, interpolation, and extrapolation. And I'll go into a very brief example of what I mean by these different levels. Now, if I were to tell you the Japanese phrase, Ohayo gozaimasu, it means good morning in Japanese. You now have gotten to the translation level within the comprehension level of the cognitive development. You are now understanding that Ohayo gozaimasu really means good morning in Japanese. So I can come to you right now, and because it's just after 6 o'clock in the morning for me as I'm recording this, I can say Ohayo gozaimasu, and you understand that means good morning. And you have now begun to understand. This is a level above memorization. It's a level above knowledge. You are to the understanding or the lowest comprehension level in Japanese language to that particular phrase. Makes sense, doesn't it? Let's go on to from the translation level up to the interpretation level. Now, the interpretation level, if I were to ask you, okay, you now understand that Ohayo gozaimasu means good morning. What do the words mean? And you could say, gee, I don't know. I don't know what the words mean. I just know that that phrase means good morning. Correct. You have reached the translation level. You have not yet reached the interpretation level. Okay, the interpretation level, Ohayo gozaimasu. Ohayo means earliness. And with the long O at the beginning, or I think at the end, Ohayo, it means it is honorable. Because, for example, the word for tea in Japanese is cha, but is very frequently preceded with a long O-cha. And that means it is honorable. And as you might understand, if you know anything at all about Japanese culture, tea holds a very revered position in their culture and society, and therefore tea is honored. So o-cha is a very Japanese cultural thing to do. And when they say ohayo, it's earliness, but it's kind of honored. And gozaimasu means this exists. And so when you're saying ohayo gozaimasu, what you're saying is there exists very much honorable earliness. And of course, if you were to say that to somebody in English, they would kind of frown and scratch their head and say, what do you mean by that? And it doesn't mean anything in American culture or in British culture or in Australian culture or any other English language culture, but in Japanese, it's a very cultural thing to say to somebody that there is very much honorable earliness, and what you're really saying is the equivalent in English of good morning. So now you are transitioned from the translation level up to the interpretation level. You can more interpret what's going on with this, and the extrapolation level is when somebody uses Ohio in another sentence and you hear that and you're saying, they're talking about some kind of earliness. Or when they say gozaimasu, you're saying, oh, that means it exists, and you're kind of extrapolating from what you know to what you don't know. And that is all the comprehension level of the cognitive domain taxonomy of development. You can now understand why people need to memorize something first before they can begin to understand it, and they need to understand it before they can move on to the next level, which is application. Now, application is being able to use it in your own projects. Let me tell you a story that really has kind of touched my heart. When I was back at Middle Tennessee State University in 2002, I was going for another master's degree in accounting and information systems. One of the courses I was taking was an accounting course, an advanced accounting course, and the teacher in that course, she was a current and former CPA. She knew a lot about accounting. And this is one of the things that just kind of frustrates the stew out of me, is there are so many teachers today that don't know how to teach. Good grief. If we would just teach our teachers how to teach, they could be so much more effective. And this lady teaching the accounting class at Middle Tennessee State University, she was one of the nicest people I had ever met. She was really, really knowledgeable. And we were like 80 to 90% of the way through this course. And we were in one of the advanced chapters. And she had assigned us to read this particular concept that was going on. She had, how many of you read this chapter? And 70 to 80% of the students raised their hands. They did it. And she said, okay, now if I were to go blah, 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 how would I use this? And almost every student in the class kind of frowned and they scratched their heads and they looked puzzled and they could not do it. And I could see on this teacher's face the level of frustration. I just told you what it is. Why can't you use it? What she did was she had them memorize the formula, and she skipped the knowledge level. She skipped the understanding of that formula, and she tried to go directly to the application level. She said, okay, you memorize the formula and now use it. She skipped that level of development. If she had only spent the time to have the students understand what that formula meant and go through translation, interpretation, and an extrapolation so that they could actually see what the pieces of it meant, they would then be able to move into the application level and use that formula. This is one of the things that I believe you as a teacher need to understand. If you want people to use whatever it is you're telling them, you need to bring them through the knowledge level, the memorization, the recognition factor, through the understanding level, the comprehension level, so they understand what the pieces of it mean, and then they can get to the application level. Now that's all I want to cover in this particular video. There's going to be more videos, and I'm going to have a playlist of them, so stay tuned for those playlists. There's a lot more to learn, and if you will learn all this stuff, I promise you will be so much more effective, not just at teaching the things that you want to share with other people, but at communication in general. So if you think this video is worth sharing with other people, give it the thumbs up. YouTube will know that they should share it with other people. Leave us a comment down in the comment section below. This is another way YouTube recognizes that this is a valuable video. And if you're already a subscriber, you know that I appreciate every single one of you. And if you're not a subscriber and you want to be notified when we post another video, go ahead and click that subscribe button and click the bell icon, and YouTube will notify you when I post another video right here on this channel. Meantime, everybody, have a wonderful day, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.